All right, it sounds like we're not having a break.
The only way you're able to get that experience is by jumping into the fire feet first. You kind of just got to roll with the punches and take whatever you can get. That's also a great learning experience and a great engineering experience because, you know, sometimes crunch time comes and sometimes you got to fight all the way through crunch time, really just cranking out that last bit of work, as I'm sure all these teams have. We have seen substantial performance increases from yesterday into today's matches, as we've seen just a thunderstorm of matches. So great to watch, so great to commentate. We are not going to be having a break. We are going to be going straight into our next match.
With all of this wishy-washiness, I just want to confirm, Michelle, we do have your credit card. This is not one of those wishy-washy things. I won't show that on screen. Yeah, so we've got another match coming up right now, which is very exciting. Back-to-back action. Let's see. Looks like we've got Texas A&M on the blue side of the field. And our other team, we're still waiting for our red side team to come in after they finish up this inspection. But we know that we've got A&M competing. Let's talk a little bit about our A&M team. I have confirmation that during the A&M Virginia Tech match, the second round, the speed monitor module on the standard for A&M was damaged. And that's what prevented them from firing for that entire match. Hopefully they've been able to swap out that speed monitor module and they'll be able to fire in this round. And we should have a pretty impressive showing.
As we saw against Virginia Tech, Texas A&M was able to do a decent amount, but they need to change up that strategy, maybe play a little bit less aggressive whenever they are not going to be able to be as accurate as VT. Whenever VT just came out and showed just a very supreme display of talent, just showing that how many years they've put in, how much time they've put in, and how well they've tuned that robot, because that thing was hitting hard, that thing was spinning fast, and that's something that they're going to have to watch out for. If the other team is able to also spin to win is a very valid tactic, because it allows you to be moving with your armor plates while you're in place, so you're able to shoot very easily, but it's a lot harder for you to get hit.
That's right. Looks like A&M will be competing against the Colorado Boulder combo team known as the Flying Buffs during this match. So this will be a really great match to see, Matt. We've seen the established teams.
Absolutely.
We've seen new team versus new team. This will be one of our compilation new teams versus one of our more established teams, which should still be a great match, right? Having these new teams join together has enabled these first-year teams to be competitive against all of our different teams. So I'm very excited that we've gotten really every different combination of team sets that we want to see in today's lineup.
Very well said, and I'm sure that we're going to have even more matchups just like that all across the board once we get into the more matches that we are going to be having today, and that is what I'm very much looking forward to. Just like you're saying, seeing that combination of matches. We got in the chat voting channel points, where you can wager your channel points and say who you want to win. You can also just type who you want to win so that we can give some shout outs, maybe anything like that. But once again, yeah, I'm just very excited for this game.
All right. During that Virginia Tech match, the A&M Sentry did come online and get several kills, which was very exciting. I know for us as commentators and also for the A&M team, a lot of them jumping up and down when it started firing. As a reminder, that Sentry is completely autonomous. So there's nothing that the controllers or the pilots or the builders can do once the match has started to tell that Sentry when to start shooting, when to stop shooting, who to shoot at. Any of that all has to be decided by the robot. And so when that robot shoots, especially when it deals damage and gets kills, it's just so exciting for our teammates and really all of the people here at RoboMasters to see that extra high level of engineering that's put forward in this competition.
Absolutely, and also it has to manage its own barrel heat. It has its own different values from the other robots, and it's not able to detect that itself. You have to kind of know those values and be able to program it to make sure that it does not exceed those, because barrel heat will kill the Sentry just as fast as it kills normal robots, and that is not something you want to have.
That's right. Looks like our predictions right now is at about 2/3, 1/3. We've got a question coming in from the chat asking us which robot type is our favorite. That's a great question. So I'll go first. I actually started in RoboMasters as a standard team lead for hardware. So I was in charge of the mechanical build of the standard robot for Texas A&M University, and because of that, I love the standard robot. It's so strong in the current meta. It deals so much damage. It's quick. It's agile. It's very fun to play and to drive. I was the driver in China for our standard, and it's so fun. Your firing rate is high. You're zooming in and out. Whereas, comparatively, the hero got that slower rate of fire, more like a tank. You're only shooting one round every so often. So personally, I'm a standard man. It really is the funnest, in my opinion, to drive. And also, last thing about the standard, I would talk about it forever. I love the standard. But last thing about the standard is that our standard robots have a lot of added capabilities. So you'll notice a lot of these robots from these more experienced teams using that spin to win capability, right? Having that 360-degree rotation using slip rings. A lot of these standards are also equipped with computer vision. Because in the 7v7 RMUC version, there are power runes that you have to hit that you need computer vision aim assist for. And so the standards really have a huge range of design, right? You can get a standard that just drives and shoots. You can get a standard that also has slip ring and CV. And then in the full 7v7, there's also ramps that our standards have to try and jump off of. And so you have to start considering suspension as well. And that depth of design makes it a pleasure to build and drive. Matt, how about yourself? Which is your favorite?
Well, as I was saying in my story earlier, I came from engineer for about 2 weeks, swapped over to the Sentry, finished with the Sentry, and went to the Aerial. And I love the Sentry and the Aerial. Those are definitely my 2 favorites. I love those auxiliary robots. The Aerial actually has no fire rate limit. And so with our Aerial, we were planning on having about a 30 round second fire rate. And that was what we were hitting in our testing. And so it was very exciting whenever we came across that, because that's something that I just love being able to work on, and just having that extra design freedom of not having that barrel heat, being able to do however much fire rate we want, and seeing that how influential in the 7v7 competition in 2019, TDT was able to win the world championship by destroying the base with only their Aerial. It was an absolute melt. It went from full health to no health in about 19 seconds.
All right.
That is a lot of rounds a second, and that's also very accurate, but that is what I like most.
A lot of our initial setup has been completed by both teams, and now they just need to make sure that referee system is sorted and ready to go. I want to give a quick shout out from my own chat to Sid on Texas A&M's team, who has done absolutely a monster amount of work on the software for his team. So shout out to Sid, who is very cool. All right, so it looks like we're having a bit of a very small technical pause. It'll be a short one, but both of our teams doing a great job. Their robots are there. It doesn't appear to be an issue on either team's side. So really excited for this Flying Buffs versus Texas A&M team.
Absolutely, it's going to be a match to watch because it's going to be action-packed. There are going to be rounds flying everywhere. Hopefully we won't get hit by anymore.
We're having some continued video transmission errors. Thanks, Radika, in the chat. This has been a pretty persistent error throughout the day, and that's all right. There's a lot of complex electronics and mechanics going into not only the robots, but especially in the referee system and the arena, and so these are to be expected. And I, again, want to thank all of our volunteers and our staff that have done such a great job keeping this competition running and keeping it online. All of these people are volunteers and really are here because they love RoboMasters, they love the competition, and they want to help continuing to support this level of innovation and STEM education that is brought about by RoboMasters in universities.
Absolutely, and that is mostly an unseen job. We just kind of see them sometimes you don't see them at all. We got our phenomenal presenting team here helping us out, being able to do all these transitions, all these different camera shots. They're going to manage all the different camera angles at the same time, try to figure out which one's the best for you guys to be watching. That is a whole lot of just thankless and like sometimes not seen, or I don't feel like sometimes not appreciated work that I feel like we should definitely be giving them thanks and appreciation for, because they definitely deserve it.
Very, very true. Chat, tell us a little bit about yourselves. Where are y'all from? Are you here from colleges? Are you here from across NA, I hope? Are you one of our viewers from China that we love oh so very much? What are we doing? Where are y'all from? RoboMasters is a worldwide competition. It's one of the biggest global competitions for robotics in the university level, and I want to know where we've got our chat from. Go ahead and throw it in there. We got some people from Kansas. Oh, I bet they're related to one of my standard team members. We've got some Aggies from Kansas. We've got some from Sacramento, California. Awesome. Awesome.
Also, we got a prime sub from Lord Saj. Thank you very much for supporting the North American regional competition in the future, because that is what all those proceeds are going to go for.
Shout out to all of those families. Happy Father's Day. Thanks for letting us steal your kids on this Father's Day to come and compete in RoboMasters or support RoboMasters. We appreciate it. We've got some more members from San Diego, no doubt supporting UCSD from Seattle, probably here for UW. Love to see it. Some Hokie fans from Virginia. Heck yeah.
Shout out to UCSD for being an OP team is what it seems like to Beast Mode Games.
There we go. We've got some A&M students from Colorado tuning in. I love how diverse and really just appealing this competition is, right? If you're really into engineering, this is for you. If you like esports, it's for you. If you like BattleBots, it's for you. There are so many different niches and groups that this competition brings together. Someone in the chat wants to know where we're from. I actually grew up here in College Station, Texas. I did live in Fairfax, Virginia for a year and a half. A little shout out to VT. I do love Virginia. Lived there while my dad was an intern at NASA. So shout out Father's Day, or a fellowship at NASA, excuse me. Little Father's Day shout out to him. How about yourself, Matt? Where do you hail from?
I'm from San Diego, but I raised in the Dallas area. So I'm from Dallas, Fort Worth, Keller specifically, if you know where that is. But I always just say Dallas, Fort Worth, because that's where most people know if they don't know Texas a whole lot.
First Player Token saying, imagine professional league pilots piloting these robots. So as the competition goes up, some colleges have started recruiting from their CSGO competitive teams for their pilots. And
that's where you find those good people with accuracy.
You need that first-person view shooting experience. You need that team comms experience. And so, yes, First Player Token, that is a strategy that a lot of our very competitive teams start to use internationally, is to recruit from their esports teams at the universities to be the drivers for RoboMasters.
As Harleman says, this game is shockingly like FPS League. It is designed to play a lot like League of Legends, especially in the 7v7 confrontation. The aerial and the dart are the two things that are kind of like the non-league elements. That's kind of just like stuff that if you can build and execute, that is something that works very well. But at the same time, the actual infantry combat plays a whole lot like League. There's actually gold as well that you get from gold blocks in the middle from moving the engineer. We have a bunch of videos of those 7v7. We were live commentating those Chinese matches. If you would like to go watch that to experience the 7v7 combat that was in China, and that is the competition that is the international one, which is what we hopefully can achieve in NA once we get enough teams to be able to compete in that.
That's right. So, like Matt's saying, if you go online and you watch our English commentary of those regional competitions, you should be able to join us again. And when we come back, the international finals have not happened yet. They will happen in July, and I'm hoping that Matt and I will be joining you once again to do English commentary for those international finals. Harriman wants to know, Matt, if you're calling this Robotic League of Legends, what would you consider the jungle?
The jungle in the 7v7, there actually is two side lanes. It's a lot like the Twisted Tree Line map, but those side lanes have ramps as well, and that's just like we were talking about with that suspension on those standards. Some heroes, we saw a hero in the central region make
that was crazy.
These robots are like 50 pounds.
That's right.
They are not small.
So Harriman, if you go and watch our video on demands of the 7v7, you'll notice the power rune in the center. That is a temporary buff comparable to like a Baron buff or something.
1.5 times damage for the entire team.
Exactly. And so that plays a lot like the jungle, where you're going to fight for control of that location, and then try and get your team together to take that buff and then push with that buff. Very similar strategy techniques. So it's a lot of fun for those of us who grew up playing or watching video games like MOBAs or Dota or League. To come here and to start building it and playing it, have it be a real thing. We actually, in our previous streams, I had a friend of mine who watched it and messaged me and said, "This is cool, but I thought you said it was in real life," because he thought we were actually showing a video of CGI. And these are all real. All of these robots are real. All of the projectiles are real. So absolutely incredible. Harriman, yes, I'm also hyped for this Texas A&M versus the CU Flying Buffs game. I want to see that A&M standard do some firing after the speed module was damaged in that last round.
Those robots are very real because we've been hit with a couple projectiles already because we are right next to the action, right happening in front of us, which is where we love to be.
That's right. Chat wants to know what our favorite video games are. Oh, I'm a busy boy, chat. I play a little bit of League. I like to play games with my brothers. I'm the youngest of four, so they've all moved out and have families. Happy Father's Day to all of my brothers and my brother-in-law. But we like to play. We played a little bit of Halo together this week, some throwback multiplayer Halo. But mainly I play a little bit of League of Legends and then spend most of my time either working on RoboMasters or going to school. I actually am getting my PhD here at Texas A&M with research in optics and nanophotonics.
Very fair. not having a lot of time because we are university students. That's also something to take into account going into this competition. We are all active university students participating in this competition. So not only are you trying to build these robots that you're spending a ton of time designing, putting together, and doing all that, but going back to answer that question, I think one of my favorite games right now is definitely League. It's very fun to play with friends. Whenever you have a 5-stack, you just roll around. You can play some ARAM. You can play some other just fun game modes, especially whenever they come out with like AR Earth and those kinds of things. But that, and then I also like Escape from Tarkov. That's a pretty fun game. But at the same time, I like League a whole lot.
Texas A&M actually has their team has a Terraria server that's kind of fun. A lot of our teams really, you bond with each other, and so they start playing together. Herman says 5-stacking League is the best way to play. On that note, my favorite way to play League, I'm a bit of a troll. I love to 5-man stack ARAM and then just do silly things. So like building support items and just having a goofy good old time.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm going to give you another reminder to smash that follow button, hit that notification button. As you can see, sometimes we have some longer lasting technical issues, and if you're busy like we are, maybe you're doing summer school or summer classes or something and you have to step away for a bit, I want you to get those notifications. I want you to see when we come back so you don't miss your teams, you don't miss your groups, you can see all of those matches and keep up with the action.
Here it goes. We are loading in, initializing that referee system as we are getting ready for this next round.
Let's go.
TAMU versus Boulder. Who is going to win?
All right, we've got Texas A&M on the blue side. We've got the Flying Buffs on the red side. Both of the robots from Texas A&M coming out of the gate, as you can see here, pretty well, splitting the map quite nicely. Some early shots coming out from that Flying Buff Standard 3. Oh, wow!
What a fire rate.
A huge amount of fire coming across from that blue Standard 3 from A&M as well. Really quite the exchange. Half health taken out by red Standard 3 from the Flying Buffs during that exchange. Probably came out a little on top for that exchange. And now red Standard 3
shooting back.
Sentry defending itself against red Standard 3. Red Standard 3 from the Flying Buffs came, tried to deal some damage. One of the robots has accidentally overheated their barrel and accidentally killed themselves. Remember, this is level 1, and until they get a few kills under their belt, they won't be able to shoot very, very quickly.
Looks like that's going to be the hero for TAMU off the line. Now it's back online after it's been revived, getting in that revive zone and also getting into that health zone to try to get his health
Excellent
back.
driving from the pilot of A&M's Blue Standard 3. It got down to probably a tenth of its health and was able to make it back to that healing zone. Great job. All right, now we're in the cockpit of one of these excellent Flying Buffs, and they're fighting the Sentry, but the blue Sentry from A&M is vicious, absolutely shoving those CU robots away from the base, and now backed up by the blue Standard from Texas A&M. Flying Buffs showing some really good aggression here, giving a really good push and taking some early pot shots at that Sentry from Texas A&M.
Absolutely.
Notably that this is one of those matches where the Flying Buffs does not have a Sentry fielded, so they will have to kill that very active Sentry from Texas A&M to claim the W.
All robots still level 1 right now, meaning that their cooling speeds and their fire rates are probably very low right now.
Blue Standard 3, Red Standard 3 having another small confrontation. Red Standard 3 making it out back to the base to heal up. This Standard has done a great job of pushing the game objectives, of shoving that Sentry, trying to get some early damage down. They've got to start chipping away at it as they only have 3 minutes left to take that Sentry all the way down to 0.
Absolutely. Not fielding a Sentry is a little bit punishing, and it makes you play a lot more aggressive, which it seems like they knew straight out the gate as they sped on down and tried to get some early kills. That Sentry shooting back at Red Standard 3 once again.
Excellent performance from both teams. We've got about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the match. We've got a kill coming across onto one of the blue team robots. I believe that is Blue Standard 3 that's been knocked offline. Great job
from that barrel overheat.
Yep.
That is going to put a level advantage on the red team, being able to push.
Blue Standard 3 makes it back to the healing buff after reviving, which is going to be good. That way he can heal. The Flying Buffs doing a great job here of applying so much pressure. They've been across the map, pretty much the entire map, pretty much the entire game. A&M has not been able to deal. They've actually dealt 1 shot of damage onto the base. I stand corrected. Great job from Texas A&M. Dealing that early base damage will mean that if the Flying Buffs want to get that W, they're not only going to have to kill the Sentry from Texas A&M, taking a bunch of shots and dealing a bunch of damage to that red team Flying Buffs.
Looks like he's going to try to get into a blind spot, which he's successful at doing in that blue base, and that's going to be very hard for the blue team to be able to come back. If he's able to get
strategy
some great shots
from
on
those
that
flying
sentry,
buffs.
looks like he's going to be taking a lot of shots on that sentry. None of them are going to be connected to the armor plate, though. Not yet, as he's trying to get a line on that shot. Looks like he's just about got it. As soon as he can start hitting that, that is going to be damage on that sentry, which is exactly what Boulder needs to be able to win this game.
We're getting a nice first-person view of that well-positioned flying buff standard. Taking some shots. He's found the spot. He can take down the sentry from there. This is going to be an incredibly close game. If he can take that sentry down, A&M is going to have to deal more damage to that base. They're going to have a base race on their hands unless A&M can shove that standard out of their base spot. Both teams taking a second.
They're pushing them back. That red standard that is trying to defend the base as the other
A&M standard
doing
A&M standard doing a significant amount of damage to that flying buff's base, landing several shots. Excellent showing from both of these teams. This is an incredibly close match.
Absolutely. If that standard can be, or that sentry can be taken out, it looks like he's going to be taking
A&M
fire.
sentry dealing so much damage to these flying buff robots. You can see what a difference it makes.
Red Standard 3 has been knocked offline in the blue base. That is going to make it very hard for him to be able to recover and be able to take out that sentry in enough time to be able to damage that base as much as A&M has damaged the Colorado Boulder base.
That was such an important strategic moment from A&M to get that kill into their base. It is going to delay the flying buffs from being able to deal much more damage to that sentry. They only have 30 seconds left, and they're going to have to heal a little bit, as when you revive, you only have a few shots worth of health before you're knocked out again.
Red Standard 3 coming back online, trying to get back to his own side to be able to repair, get his health back, and try to make one last push with 10 seconds left. He's going to have to move very fast.
This is looking like it'll be the first victory in the group stages for Texas A&M Aimbots. Great showing from all of their robots in this match, and it will be a blue team victory.
Excellent strategy employed by Colorado Boulder to get into the blind spot of that sentry and be able to attack it from the back from a very safe position as long as A&M was unaware that there was a robot in their own base.
Matt, I'm not going to lie to you. I have a special spot in my heart for the standard of Texas A&M, and it did incredibly well. Some great kills. Really, probably the MVP of that match, still the sentry. I can't explain well how difficult it is to make a sentry that can autonomously find, target, and accurately shoot opponent robots. But you can tell, hopefully you heard some of the cheering over the mics. The teams go crazy every time their sentry lands a hit. It is so difficult to get that to work. So many of these teams have been working, I know, all night, all week, all month, all year, trying to get this pulled off. So what a great match, Matt. We've talked a lot about A&M, about that sentry and how impactful it was during that match, that one big strategic kill. Let's talk a little bit about the flying buffs. What can they do? What can they change? What did they do? They did some great things during this match. Talk to us a little bit about it.
They knew exactly what they needed to do. They did not field a sentry, so they were saying, we got to go aggressive, and we know that weakness of that sentry. We get behind that thing in that base, and we are able to take shots at that without it being able to hit. That is a very good strategy. However, it does have the weakness of if you do not have a supporting robot coming to defend the robot that's inside that base, it can very easily be taken out, as we saw, and cornered in that base and not able to do a whole lot whenever it's knocked out in that base and having to make a desperate escape back through the sentry fire whenever it only takes a couple shots from that sentry to knock it offline with that tiny sliver of health from a revive.
That's right. Harriman wants to know if the blue team had a natural advantage because they have a sentry. Yes. So remember, right now as you're watching it, it feels like an esport, and you might say that's not fair. For the last year and a half, it has been competed in by these teams as an engineering competition. So all of the robots are built from scratch and coded from scratch by the teams, and you try and field the best and the largest number of robots that you can in that time period. In Texas A&M's first year, they did not have that sentry, and it cost them dearly at those international regionals in China. And they've learned from that mistake and have now made sure that they always have a sentry ready to at least be on the field within regulation. During that first match, we saw it not firing. It's great to see it online now.
Absolutely. A whole bunch of the teams that have guns on their sentries getting those tuned and ready to go as we move into the later stages of this competition, and that's very exciting. Seeing all the robots working is exactly what we want to see, and especially seeing those strategies working. Colorado Boulder knowing exactly what they needed to do. It seems like if they're able to change up their strategy just a little bit, that could be a winning strategy.
The most impressive thing I saw from the flying buffs was that spot. The driver was able to find live in the match where he could sit without getting hit and deal damage to the sentry. Incredible. We haven't seen any of our established teams find that spot in the match. They are a group of first-year teams Their robots are functional. They were able to find that new strategic point and deal some damage to that A&M sentry, even though it was firing back. That is a feat that none of our upper-level teams have really been able to find so far. So props to them. Absolutely incredible. Great job flying buffs. We applaud you. Your strategy was amazing. You found some great new techniques that I think will be swept up by a lot of these new teams and used in the matches to come.
Absolutely. And if they can employ that tactic once more and just have a little bit more people there, having the resources to be able to prevent another standard from being able to pin their own standard in that blue base, that could very well be a winning strategy to be able to even out this match to be a 1-1 score.
That's right. It does appear, though, that the Texas A&M sentry is not moving back and forth, which may be just a strategic decision. Who knows from the Texas A&M side? But in that position, it is easier to hit, but also it's easier for it to make sure it's firing back. We saw very frequently that sentry was able to fire around the center barricade so that robots could not peek it, but it did leave that other blind spot that flying buffs were able to exploit.
Absolutely, and acknowledging that is just a feat of its own, and being able to see it just like you were saying live in action and being able to get into a spot that you know is a blind spot, that is incredible.
Go ahead and vote in the chat, y'all. Who do you think will win this next match? This was, I think, one of our closest games, although our A&M standard did an incredible job of getting across there and doing damage to the base, securing that win. But the Flying Buffs doing a great job of dealing damage to that sentry. If they can defend their base and still deal significant amount of damage to the sentry, it is anyone's game.
Absolutely well said, because it definitely is anyone's game. Finding that blind spot, finding that weakness, and being able to exploit it, knowing that hopefully A&M is going to be able to recognize that they know that there's a weak spot there, and they're going to have to focus resources to defend that. And that is going to possibly be a very costly thing, because that means that they're going to have one robot kind of constantly on defense to make sure that blind spot is not exploited.
That's right. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that in their heads-up display they do get a readout of sentry health. I will wait and see if we can get confirmation on that. All right, so then if they can also, the pilots, if they're cognizant, if they see that, if they have that map awareness, if you will, then they can just come back to base and do defense anytime their sentry starts taking damage.
But focusing on that while you have so much other stuff going on your screen is something that's very hard to do.
Hey, we got a shout out to Ian on the Texas A&M team and everyone else working on less than 4 hours of sleep. That everyone else is probably encapsulating pretty much every student here at this competition. I know a lot of them stayed up pretty much all night last night, as they have for several of the days in the last week.
We've got a technical timeout called by Boulder as they are having some, hopefully not.
Narwhal Pilot, give us a name, buddy. We'll call him out. We'll give him props. Apparently his team leader is running on 3 hours of sleep, but his energetic as ever, and his name is Isaac. Isaac, great job, bud. We love that hype. We love that ability to run on 3 hours of sleep from CU. There we go. All right, so now we know we've got 4 hours of sleep on the A&M side, 3 hours of sleep on the Flying Buff side, and they're battling with their robots, and this match was amazing. One of my favorite matches to see so far. We saw sentry kills, we saw standard kills, we saw base damage, we saw it all. This was a pretty full match, and the Flying Buffs really setting themselves up well to do very great throughout this competition.
Also seeing some really good tactics. This is a strategic competition at the end of the day as well. It is not only engineering, it is not only, an esport, you got to have that strategy. If you have that strategy and you're able to exploit the weakness of something that you also, you find the strength in your own weakness, right? They don't have a sentry, so they're going to play super offensive. They're going to go into that base, and that's going to be something that could turn the tide in their favor and be able to give them that W.
So much love coming across the chat for Isaac, who is more machine than man. And his buddy Bronson. We are getting a question from First Player Toking asking what blood bags are. I have no idea. We'll see where it is in the heads-up display perhaps during this match, but that is not a term I'm familiar with in RoboMasters. So we'll have to see if that was perhaps a translation error.
That could be the med kit in the middle of
the I believe you're right. That's right. So
because it's that little green bar on the the middle whenever there's people standing in that zone. It will just gradually go up until it's fully charged. It's kind of like a defibrillator. You charge the defibrillator, and then you go back to that zone, and you get a punch of help.
That's right. We've got another question in chat asking, in the 2v3, is it better for the two-man team to play aggressive or defensive? They have to play aggressive. If both teams play defensive in a 2v3, the two-man team will lose based on just their lack of a sentry, because one of the win conditions is remaining sentry health, and if you do not field a sentry, your remaining sentry health is 0. We are jumping straight into the action with 2 seconds left. High expectations for this second match. All right, as the game begins, we have A&M's robots coming out of the gate nice and calmly. Some early shots coming out from A&M's hero. Some early trading, just like last game, between the standards of the Flying Buffs and Texas A&M.
That is going to cause a fallback into the cover as the standard from the A&M team is pushing that red standard from Boulder back behind that cover, making sure that he is not able to be as aggressive as he was last time. We see
red standard 3 from the Flying Buffs starting to push up against this hero, but the blue standard from Texas A&M coming in, turning this into a 2v. Couple of the shots hitting him on his way out. A great job playing a little bit more offensively as Texas A&M, keeping the Flying Buffs away from their base this match. Stark opposition to their strategy in match 1.
Red hero having barely, or blue hero having barely any health because back from the middle, giving control back. Oh, there's that
some long-range sentry shots hit from halfway across the map. Red standard 3 coming in from the Flying Buffs, trying to get into that position. He is in that position and starting to take shots at the back of the sentry from Texas A&M, dealing a lot of damage, shooting a lot of balls into the commentating area, doing a great job. Look at the Flying Buffs go, dealing that early damage. This is exactly what they need. They need to take that sentry health all the way down. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen a detailed view of that health bar. They've taken it down about by a quarter, maybe a little bit more, coming on to a third of the health. A&M has got to get in there and take that standard out, or this is going to be a sentryless match for both teams. The sentry is still looking forward, is putting some damage down onto standard 4 from the red team. Of Flying Buffs doing a great job. The hero from Texas A&M now starting to take some shots at this standard from the Flying Buffs.
And that's going to knock him completely offline in 2 shots, but he's also going to trade his own life for that because he is now overheated on his barrel.
Standard 3 from the Flying Buffs still sitting in the back, hiding behind the base and taking shots at that sentry for Texas A&M.
Texas A&M is going to need to get into their base and defend it. Looks like that's exactly what blue
standard from Texas A&M, dealing a huge amount of damage to red standard 3, chasing him out of the base. Red standard 4 coming in here, but now on this side of the sentry, they have that backup from the autonomous robot. Excellent job from that blue standard 3 on Texas A&M, being able to force both of those in a 2v1 confrontation, although he does have a backup from the sentry. Great job.
That sentry sitting about half health for Texas A&M. That is going to be very easy to take out with 2 minutes and 15 seconds left in this
Blue standard 3 still has a very high amount of health from that 2v1 and is now making some moves.
That is some health done on the base. That means that Boulder is going to have to not only kill the sentry, but get a couple plinks in on that base.
Good strategic decisions. Look at that. Excellent strategy and decision making from Texas A&M as they get that early base damage done, and then they come back over to defend their own base. They take a couple more shots. The red standard 3, excellent decision making as well from the Flying Buffs. They've come back to the same spot to keep chipping away at this sentry. Reminder, they are in a 2v3. They do need to take this sentry all the way out to take the victory. A little bit of a pause here. Red standard 3 from the Flying Buffs.
That shot, he's hitting it once
very
again.
Consistent. Great accuracy from the Flying Buffs. Incredible from one of our early first-year teams.
That is going to be defense from the blue team. A&M going back into their base and making sure that red standard 3 does not just have free reign on that. And that's going to keep.
They've got to be careful. Remember that all of this damage is registered with force sensors, which means if your balls bounce around in this small corner, wow, another kill. Crazy stuff happening here in the back line. There is a kill coming across on both teams. Like I was saying, with all of this confrontation happening right next to the base, there is a chance for ricochets to actually deal damage to A&M base. We see that the blue standard 3 actually dealing a substantial amount of damage to red standard 4 onto the Flying Buff side. Crazy match.
Red standard 4 having barely any health. Is he going to be able to get away, or is he going to get knocked offline? It is going to be very close here as he is trying to get back to his repair zone to be able to get his health back. Looks like the hero on Texas A&M is going to be trying to get into position to take out that base. 30 seconds left. He's got a full hopper, it looks like.
We'll see if that hero can land any of those shots onto the base. That would be a huge amount of damage.
200 damage per shot to that base is a substantial amount. That is 20 standard rounds on that base.
A few ramming yellow cards coming across. You can see when that back of the bar turns bright yellow for the light indicator module on a couple of these teams. Really probably from that base interaction where they were all crammed in that small space. So hard at that point not to bump into each other quite aggressively, honestly.
Blue standard 3 knocking red standard 4 offline, and it's coming back online.
5 seconds left. It looks like this will be another 2-0, but agreeing with chat, Flying Buffs have put on a show. In a 2v3, they made this match extremely competitive. They were able to deal substantial damage to the sentries. Great job by both teams. Congratulations. The cheers from the crowd. Great job, Texas A&M. Congratulations on your victory. Flying Buffs You have impressed all of us. Absolutely incredible combination of these new teams. They have done a great job. We hope to see them so many years in the future, over and over again. If they can bring a century into their next competition, they will be a force to be reckoned with. On a robot versus robot basis, they did outstanding.
And seeing that strategy, being able to recognize the strategy in the heat of the moment, go through with that strategy, execute it to the absolute fullest extent, almost getting a century kill with only having 2 robots on the field.
All right. And now we're going to take a second and look at those damage graphs for the Texas Aimbots. Look at that. Shout out to all of those team members. I know it sounds vain because I'm on there too as one of the developers of Texas A&M Standard, but they have done such a great job. So much effort and work put into these robots over the last year. So much effort put in, especially as the hosting school. I know a lot of those team members on the screen have spent most of their summer building robots, planning this event, volunteering at this event. Excellent job from Texas A&M. And again, I cannot emphasize enough how impressive the Flying Buffs were. I expect to see them come out on top of our new teams this year and be competitive against all of our other teams. They were very competitive in this match against Texas A&M.
With only 2 robots.
In their first year. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Great job all around. We will be entering a 30-minute break here. So make sure you hit that follow button. Make sure you hit that notifications button just so you can see those notifications when we come back live. It'll be about 30 minutes. We will be playing some ads. Don't go away. Don't hear the word ads and shut off. These aren't Google ads. This is videos from DJI about RoboMasters. These are videos produced by the teams about their temporary workspaces that they've been working in COVID. Stick around. Learn about the teams. That way when that team competes, you will get to see what all of that work turned into. You'll get to see the robots. You'll have a bit more of a connection to those teams that you're watching today.
And if you also want to see some of the 7v7 matches, that is on the YouTube channel, RoboMaster NA, if you would like to see some of those, to see what the full-scale competition looks like, and not just this super exciting 3v3 that we are so happy to be hosting.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
And we will be seeing you in 30 minutes.